Hey there, I'm Mark, in affiliation with Spectrum Pulse, and it's a relatively normal week with returns from The Weeknd, Tate McRae, Playboi Carti, and it's Billboard BREAKDOwn.
I don't remember.
We've had multiple weeks in a row where things have felt more normal. I don't expect it to last when Future impacts the Hot 100 with mixtape Pluto, but I'm taking the breather while I can, mostly because I don't have much faith it's gonna last as the autumn really ramps up. I got the sneaking suspicion we got at least a few more big drops to impact the Hot 100 before the year concludes. Just watch. But in the meantime, especially if you look at our top 10, things are largely stable, starting off with a bar song, Tipsy by Shaboozey, still holding the number one because it went back to the top spot on streaming, and while the radio is on decline, it's got such a margin there it hardly matters. Can you push the follow-up single while you still have some momentum? It's starting to get alarming, the lack of traction for more. But it held comfortably over I Had Some Help by Post Malone featuring Morgan Wallen, still at number 2, where it's losing radio just as quickly and it doesn't have that streaming margin, and that's a similar case for Espresso by Sabrina Carpenter at number 3, which is actually losing streams and is below the radio margin despite having a slightly better week over there. Then we had a surge I was not quite expecting, Good Luck Babe by Chappell Roan to a new peak at number 4. Yeah, it got a good streaming boost and some nice sales, but apparently that was just enough of a margin to make the jump despite the radio kinda stalling out, which propelled her over Die With a Smile by Lady Gaga and Bruno Mars, which is also up to number 5, with better and more consistent streams, just not enough to make up on the radio margin that they're trying to chase down, although that'll probably change in the coming weeks. And that's kind of funny because Birds of a Feather by Billie Eilish made the radio run. She jumped past Chappell Roan there, but both the streams and sales are down, and thus she's stuck at number 6. Then we got Lose Control by Teddy Swims, actually up multiple slots to number 7, despite radio being on the downswing. I think it's just a case where the streaming was somewhat stable, because compare that to More Losses for Taste by Sabrina Carpenter, now down at number 8. And that made some ground up on the radio, but it slipped enough on streaming to lose its position, and the margins in order to make it up are actually kind of big. And then Please 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 by Sabrina Carpenter is down at number 9, where the radio growth just did not have enough traction to really support her streaming losses. And finally, to end things off, we got Not Like Us by Kendrick Lamar holding just enough at number 10, where midway through the week he got enough of a radio surge to buoy up some of the streaming losses, and thus he didn't fall out of the top 10. And again, for a diss track like this to hold on for so long, I'll say it, legit impressive. Now on the flip side, we got our losers and dropouts, and in the latter group, there's really only 2 songs that are worth mentioning, with Devil Is a Lie by Tommy Richmond falling well short of making any year-end list for 2024. He's now saying that that song and $1 Million Baby will not be on his debut album dropping this Friday. We'll see what his label has to say about that when it actually comes to any sort of streaming position for the Billboard 200. And also Gotta Only by Floyd Menor and Chris MJ is handily snagging its year-end list spot. And the losers, for the most part, they make sense, so let's run through those from Sabrina Carpenter's album bomb first. Good Graces at 44, Juno at 62, Coincidence at 73, Sharpest Tool at 76, and Slim Pickens at 94. Then we had the expected losses off the debut for The Emptiness Machine by Linkin Park at 42. Frankly, I'm stunned it stuck to the Hot 100 at all. And Never Play by Megan Thee Stallion and RM at 79. The rest are pretty scattered. Losers by Post Malone featuring Jelly Roll is riding the residual album bomb to 80. Band for Band by Central C and Lil Baby is trying to scrape together just enough to make the year-end list at 86. No Face by Drake slid down to 88. And Chihiro by Billie Eilish has somehow stuck around long enough to hold at 93. If it had a bit more traction, it could make the year-end list too. Now, the returns and gains are a little bit more interesting, especially in the former group, as not only did My Kink Is Karma by Chappell Roan get back at 97, but Fuel by Eminem and Jid is back at 91. Some of this might be due to a remix that caught some fire with Westside Boogie and Grip. I mean, it's still probably the best song on the album. It'll be interesting to see if any real traction happens, but there is not much in the way of gains here, and of course, I'm not that happy that Residuals by Chris Brown is up off the return at 85, and Shake That Ass Twerk Song by Boss Man D-Lo is up off the debut to 82. But the rest, Si No Quieres No by Luis R. Conriquez, rose up to 67, and Casual by Chappell Roan got a really nice boost to 59. Tough to say what's pushing the momentum with that one, but it is my favorite Chappell Roan song to date. I'm not about to complain. But alright, now on to another somewhat reasonable list of our new arrivals, and we're gonna start off with number 100, Worst Way by Riley Green.
Anything that'll break, baby, I need you tonight. Let's see how much love we can make. I want you in the worst way.
You know, it seems like Riley Green gets on the path to making some somewhat decent neo-traditional leaning material, and then he pulls something like this, where he was trying for something closer to smoldering, smoky country soul, and I'm not nearly as convinced by the results. Now, part of it is the main lyrical conceit. If you're gonna want to say you want someone in the worst way, try to play for something a little bit more sexual, where there's not gonna be anything pure or angelic about the rough sex they're gonna have tonight, can you at least back it up with a darker melodic tone? The hazy cymbals and the waltz cadence and the heavier bass and organ, those are the right choices, but the major key melody is just too bright, and Riley Green's got no quiet storm intensity in order to sell it. If anything, it feels more adult contemporary that cannot back up the vibe that it's proposing. It's barely even indecent. And when you call a song Worst Way, you need more. It's not bad per se, but certainly a missed opportunity. Not that impressed. Number 95, I Never Lie by Zach Top.
Since you said goodbye, wish I could say I miss you, but you know I never lie.
Okay, this is a nice surprise. I've seen Zach Top get some considerable hype from the indie underground scene, especially those who like 90s neo-traditional country, and as one of those guys, I honestly wish I had the time to swing back and discuss his debut album from April of this year. He actually started off more towards bluegrass, but he's pivoted to this sort of throwback sound, and this song caught some viral attention, and wow, if Zach Top's voice didn't remind me a bit of Vince Gill in the vocal timbre, a song like this would be the splitting image of something Alan Jackson would have cut in like the mid-90s. A pleasantly mid-tempo, well-produced, impressively organic song with a ton of pedal steel from his producer Carson Chamberlain, who just so happened to play with Keith Whitley and then Alan Jackson and Clint Black. Even some of the huskier vocal inflections, they remind me of Alan. And yet I wouldn't really call it an impression, mostly because Zach Top's writing has a slightly different edge. He's meeting up with an ex, and while there's a part of him that wants to express a little bit of heartache, truth be told, his life has gotten much better in terms of work, and now dating a model from out in LA. He's in a much better place, and he can't even lie about it. Now, a track like this could have very easily come across as self-satisfied, but it feels a bit more rueful that it just wound up a better circumstance, and since she mostly did too, might as well be candid, maybe even celebrate. So yeah, I called a bit of nostalgia on my end, but I think this has a lot of charm, and I really want to check out that album at some chance. Really good stuff. Give it a shot, check it out. Number 75, Bad Dreams by Teddy Swims. You know, as much as I don't really care for Lose Control, between The Door and some of his guest appearances this year, Teddy Swims is really making inroads to having me like him. He's got a song with Lucky Day called Blame that is absolutely fire. You should go check that out. So I actually had some expectations for this song, and you know what? I think I'm realizing with Teddy Swims, when he has a groove at a respectable tempo, he's actually pretty great. And thankfully, like The Door, Bad Dreams absolutely falls in that territory. Now, it doesn't have that same dramatic swing as The Door, with the more restrained liquid guitars and the firmer bass line and the softer snarl that plays off the distant horn touches, but this brand of throwback soul is such a natural fit for his huskier timbre, and it has just enough reverb to feel a bit bigger, especially with the very judiciously timed hand claps. Now, I'm not as wowed by the lyrics. This sort of yearning for a woman to soothe his heart and break past some bad dreams and his own vices feels a bit demanding in a way I don't think he can incredibly sell just yet, but I'm also gonna call this really damn good too. If this is what Teddy Swims is now delivering, yeah, I'll call it a win, at least for now. If you haven't heard it, give it a shot. Number 74, Talk Talk by Charli XCX featuring Troye Sivan.
Matter if I understand, there's no cry in my ear. Tell me your secrets and fears. Once you talk to me, I'll talk to you and say, hey, shall we go back to my place?
Okay, this was not one of my favorite songs off of Brat to get the remix, and going back to the original, yeah, still not one of my favorites. The goopy guitars and the synths behind the blocky clap and a really repetitive hook, it feels like it needed another gear to really take off for me, and I guess that makes sense for a song that's yearning for connection, where you're frustrated with that whole lack of communication. But you know what, if there is a track where I would hope that Troye Sivan might offer a good counterpoint on the remix, maybe flip up the lyrics, it would be this one. And I was half right, because while Troye Sivan provides someone seeking for that same sort of connection with his husky, horny energy, then playing off some uncredited Dua Lipa providing the alternate language to talking to ramp up some of that sexual appeal, but man, when you get to the production, the rest of the track just gets away from them. I like that spare gloss that works for Troye Sivan's verse, and the pulsating synth bass alongside the patter, it's promising, but then the song grabs the outro of the original mix and then uses that as the hook instead through this increasingly choppy, pitch-bending house throwback that somehow has even less impact. The hook's just nowhere near as good. It feels like a remix that misunderstood the strength of the last song. It's just sloppier, and yeah, no, I still don't care for it. Sorry. Let's move on. Number 61, Passport Junkie by Rod Wave.
And take pics in the sand. She tryna work on a tan. You ever been to Thailand? We ain't gotta pack no clothes. We can shop when we land. You want bad bitch views? What you willing to do? She can't come to your room unless it's in Tulum. You ain't ready for her. I think you should slow your roll. Is you ready for her? No, no, no.
It feels like years since Straight Runner blew my mind in 2021. It also feels like Rod Wave has largely been running in place ever since. So my expectations for this are probably a lot lower than you might expect from me, especially as it's a song fragment that barely clocks over 2 minutes and it's got no hook, with the sharper trap cymbals, the leaden beat, the faded vintage synths that only pick up a little bit of twinkle by the end of the song. Gee, wonder where we've heard that before. But what really lost me here was Rod Wave's delivery. He sounds so faded and checked out as he rambles about how women, they don't want the old expensive hotel room, they want to be flown around the world, and he just doesn't sound that joyful in that traveling experience. It sounds kind of routine. So okay, compare this to So Good by B.O.B. from 2012. Yes, I know, I'm the only person who's gonna make the comparison, but go with me on this. B.O.B. sounded thrilled to see the world with his girl, whereas for Rod Wave, it's just a dejected flex with advice to men who don't have the money, focus on themselves. And sure, I guess it's not wrong, but I've heard this hustle culture spiel before, and the song doesn't have enough to really back it up behind naming locations and buying her more things. In other words, I really wish Rod Wave had bothered to develop his sound and structure more over the years. This isn't hitting anymore. I'm sorry. Number 20, It's Okay, I'm Okay by Tate McRae.
Okay, I'm okay, I don't really gotta say it's okay. You can have him anyway. You can have him anyway.
Looks like we got another new Tate McRae album coming, either late this year or early next. If you can't tell, I'm still waiting for Tate McRae to develop more of a personality in pop, and given the stronger year we have had in that genre, at least in the mainstream, I'm not sure Tate McRae is stacking up to modern competition. Oh, I'm not sure she's stacked up to weaker competition, especially with this imitation of something that Camila Cabello would have done in 2019. Not a compliment. Seriously, it's uncanny. The drippy melody with the thicker 808s and trap percussion as the synths gradually saturate more of the mix, where Tate McRae pushes her vocal runs into her wisp of an upper register, and it might not sound as forced as Camila Cabello was, but it's just not a great sound and register for her, especially when that thicker knock of the beat could use someone with some actual pipes. Now, the sentiment of the song, it's not bad. She sees a girl going for her ex, that girl's clearly infatuated, and Tate McRae basically shrugs it off with an assertion she's okay with pretty much all of it. Mostly because she seems convinced it's gonna end badly, and well, that's a bit more believable. I'm not sure her flat blankness and disaffection is a good substitute for anything else. I think on the groove alone, it's probably gonna do well on pop radio, similar to how Greedy did. Radio always loves its filler. And again, I don't think it's bad, but again, we got better pop stars than Tate McRae. We can all do better. Number 15, All Red by Playboi Carti.
Upside down, crust, turn to my neck, shut 'em up. I sat down, cross, telling my neck, shut him out. I sat down, cross, telling my neck, shut him out.
Okay, the buzz I heard for this, even before it dropped, was that Playboi Carti was just ripping off Future wholesale in favor of finding a new excruciating vocal timbre. I had my doubts. Future was actually trying to put in some work this year, showing more dimensionality, try to get a bit more interesting. But in case this actually leads to that new Carti project, I wanted to hear the song, and holy shit, with that vocal timbre and drawl and inflection, I have not heard a Future imitation this flagrant since Designer, and this is not Panda nor Timmy Turner. Kind of a shame because the production's not bad. The weird whirring bleep of the rage that actually had a chance to get kind of heavier midway through the verse, it was kind of cool, even if it's a bit grainy and grating for my taste and some of the embellishments. And you know what? The trap percussion is well mastered, but I'm sorry, if Playboi Carti's just gonna rip off Future, he sounds way more repetitive, the brand name porn is more flagrant, the threats are less impressive, and all the faux satanic touches are painfully undercooked. And in comparison to when Playboi Carti felt more carefree and wild, this is just bargain barrel. It's out of ideas. It's not interesting. The production might save it, but only barely. I can't call it good. And finally, number 14, Dancing in the Flames by The Weeknd.
We're dancing in the flames. It's
Okay, at this point, I don't know what to expect for this new and apparently last album from The Weeknd under that moniker. The conclusion of the trilogy that started with After Hours and largely didn't get as much credit as deserved with Dawn FM. And given that I heard some middling reviews of the new song, I was setting myself up for disappointment. And let me start by saying I do not think it's bad. It's got the feel of an album cut instead of a strong lead-off single. And I think the lead cause of that is that main metallic synth line in the central loop. Namely that as The Weeknd tries to bend his singing and do more interesting things, that melody never evolves much to support him. The bass and the fizzy 80s drum machine does, and both the second verse and bridge drop out the melody, the outro's got some cool atmospherics, but it has no visceral impact. And for a song about driving recklessly into many a head-on collision for this love, where the world can't heal itself, he might just crash out and dance in the flames. I don't know, this should go way harder. Part of it is the feeling that some of The Weeknd's best songs are driving music. Blinding Lights, False Alarm, they both spring to mind among others. And this just feels a bit tepid. Not a promising start to whatever's coming on the album, but I guess it is okay, even as I don't really expect it to last. All I'm saying. And that was our week. Honestly, a little bit worse than I was expecting, but at least it fell out pretty quick. With the bottom slot going to All Red by Playboi Carti with the Future ripoff, and dishonorable mention, I was gonna say Talk Talk by Charli XCX and Troye Sivan, but I think Passport Junkie by Rod Wave is a bigger disappointment. I don't get any replay value, and it's a real shame. Best of the week is much clearer. Bad Dreams by Teddy Swims, followed by I Never Lie by Zach Top as the honorable mention. Might be easy sells for me, perhaps, but when they stick the landing, I'm gonna take them. Now next week, expect a lot of Future with Mixtape Pluto. I can imagine the album bomb is coming, stay tuned. But until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Billboard Breakdown, affiliated with Spectrum Pulse. And I'll see you next time.